Welcome back, everybody. This week in Creepy Travels, we are traveling to Chicago, Illinois. I can tell you right now, one of my stories is near Chicago. I don't know if it's absolutely in Chicago, but we thought since we'll be traveling there in a couple of weeks that we would go ahead and cover some stories. So Alan's going to start us off.
So my first one is kind of like a little history lesson too. And then my other stories are more just personal details or stories told by people. So the first one comes from Windy City Ghosts, their website, and it's talking about Death Alley near, I don't know if it's Nederlander or Nederlander Theater. And it says also, the alley is also known as Couch Place, used for pedestrians to pass through. Apparently, that's of useful knowledge. I don't know. They wanted us to know that. They said you can also find the Oriental loading area in this alley. However, it wasn't always this easygoing and simple. In 1903, some unimaginable actions took place here. So the theater was built in 1962, and it says, however, before that, the area was just a simple piece of land that was home to Iroquois Theater. So this theater was built in the year 1903. It was very fancy, elegant. And then there is a fire. Midway through the showing of the play Mr. Bluebeard, a stage light had sparked. This spark flew onto the backdrops, which were extremely flammable. Long story short, it started on fire, the whole theater. The crew that was working backstage did everything they could to put out the fire, and then the fire extinguisher, it was powder form. It said, however, this would not work because they could not throw it onto the flames. So it's like a powder that would be in an extinguisher. They couldn't throw it up above them because the fire was up on curtains and stuff. So the fire is spreading rapidly. The audience realizes this. The crowd panics, which usually is what causes a lot of people to die, like when there's panic and stampede.
Over other people.
So the crowd panicked. They tried to calm the crowd down. They urged them to leave the building in an orderly fashion. One of the actors is trying to calm them down, but no one's listening to him. People were rushing out of their seats. This did not do much good, though, because there was nowhere they could go. They couldn't find the exits. The exits of the theater were not labeled. The doors for the exits that were used, they had what is known as a bascule lock. Have you heard of that before?
No.
Me either. These locks are popular in theaters in Europe, but not in Chicago. The people could not figure out how to unlock the doors.
Oh, God.
So they're pretty much locked in this burning building. Long story short, because of people trying to leave, like some people died inside, but most of the people died in the alleyway. They were like obviously smoke inhalation and stuff, but people trying to leave, the fire escapes weren't fully finished either. So people were falling to their death.
Jeez.
Yeah, it said that the fire only lasted for 30 minutes, but I mean, a fire, you don't need that long. 600 people died. It says the majority of them were not in the building, like I stated earlier, but they were outside in the alley. It says some of the bodies piled about 6 feet high. That's how many people died. And then they have some graphic pictures of dead bodies.
We won't share those.
No. So, obviously, with all that death and it being like a traumatic death, it says that there are many spirits lingering. If you walk in the alley, you may notice a chilly breeze even on warm days. You may hear someone whisper your name when you're in the alley. I don't know how they know your name, unless they're just saying names, or it's their name and it just happens to be your name.
Yeah.
Some people report the feeling of hands on their shoulders. Then they look, there's no hands there. People refer to these hands as phantom hands. However, this doesn't stop people from visiting the alleyway or the theater. Many people who are commuting in Chicago use the alleyway, and so do actors for the new theater and the stage crews. So they have just different stories if you really want to look into Windy City Ghosts and this theater. There's a lot of stories. So, yeah.
That'd be fun to visit. Or like to just walk through. If it's in our area when we go, just to walk through.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it's a cool looking theater too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my first one. That is Death Alley.
Thank you. All right. Mine is from Reddit, from Was Up. And this is the one where I'm like, it says West Loop. So I think it's near Chicago. So this is about Moody Road. And then he does have a little short stories at the end about two other places. All right, so he says, back in high school, we used to hit Moody Road on the regular, and without fail, trip after trip, the light would appear. None of us could ever explain how it happened, and because of that, we kept going back. So they were saying, is someone effing with us? Is the highway in the distance somewhere? Whatever we may have thought it was, it always reappeared if we took the necessary steps. Park near the tree on the hill in silence, blink the lights 3 times, or whatever, and wait. Then a glow would appear far down the road and continue to get brighter, / they said closer, because when lights get brighter, they get closer, kind of like the Paulding light, which we keep saying we'll cover eventually, and brighter until someone freaked out. I think the closest it ever came was about 50 yards, and several of us swore we saw the resemblance of a face being lit behind the lantern. Scary crap. Were we in high school, and did we drink, smoke? It says toke. I don't know what that one was supposed to be.
I got smoking too.
Yeah. On every trip? Of course we did. Did we actually see the light and get frightened? Every time. So that was one of his stories. He said, we also used to do the Bachelor's Grove as a popular drinking destination for us underagers. Walking alone in those woods was always scary, odd sounds and whatnot. Several people in my group have seen the rising barn out of the pond and have all had similar descriptions of it. However, I've never witnessed it. And then they also said Resurrection Mary is another good story. My uncle said they used to hang out in the cemetery and have, on several occasions, seen a woman in a white dress walking around in the distance. They said, find the actual story online from the late 70s. Pretty crazy crap. Even in the mid-90s, this was an overly populated destination, so it was pretty difficult for my group to frequent this place. I have heard on several random occasions of people saying they've spotted her driving past. So that was Moody Road, and then a little side stories of Bachelor's Grove and a cemetery, which I have a story on later. But yeah, that, like I said, that reminds me of the Paulding light with, you don't have to blink or anything, you just show up. But how they say, is it traffic lights? Just the thing is, that would mean some family is sitting at the end of this 24/7. Because we've seen the Paulding light, for instance, we've seen that in the daylight. That would mean someone. So I think it tends to be like a phenomenon kind of thing. What you got for me?
So I have 2 more stories. This one's from Reddit, and it's by Playful Platform 6056.
Wow.
I was wondering how people get their names. All right. Myself and 2 friends went to the hair show in Chicago in 2014. We booked a room at the Congress Plaza Hotel because it was affordable and close to the show. We checked in, dropped off our things, then went to the show all day. Apparently, that's a long show.
That is a long show.
When we were done with the show, we decided to have dinner at the restaurant in the hotel. We sat at the bar and saw a group of people being led around the lobby area. It looked like a tour, so we asked the bartender what they were doing. She said, "Oh, that's one of the haunted Chicago tours." We're like, "Why are they here?" We had no idea it was known to be haunted until she told us. We asked if she ever had any experiences. She said, "I haven't worked here for very long, but coworkers in the kitchen have told me about cabinets flying open by themselves without explanation." One of my friends was so spooked about this hotel being haunted, she stopped the conversation with the bartender and begged us not to look online for any stories about it until we were on our way home, so we didn't. I feel like I would kind of do that too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's find him later. That night, the same friend that was scared shared a bed with me. Our other friend had a bed to herself because she recently had a baby and needed to get up at the night to pump. While I was sleeping, I had a very, very vivid dream about a group of elementary-age kids lined up in the hallway outside of our room. These kids were wearing clothes that would have been worn in the 1930s or 1940s. The boys were in suspenders wearing nice hats and the girls in dresses. That's all the dream was. The kids lined up outside of our door. During this quick dream, my friend woke me up and said, "Did you hear that?" I said, "Hear what?" She said, "I keep hearing kids laughing. It's like they're right above us. Not on the next floor, but right above our heads in this room." She was already nervous, so I didn't tell her about my dream until morning. We fell back asleep because this was around 3 a.m. or so. As soon as I fell asleep, I had another quick, vivid dream of what I thought was a nurse from the same time period, standing at the end of my friend's bed, just watching her. She was wearing a black and white dress with a hat. I immediately woke up again and didn't fall back asleep this time. On our way home, I anxiously looked online for stories about the hotel. To my surprise, I found multiple stories about guests seeing a maid wearing black and white in the middle of the night. This made me think my mind automatically went to nurse because my friend had recently had a baby, but maybe I was actually seeing the maid. There are also multiple stories of kids haunting the hotel. I'm actually glad my friend wouldn't let us look into these stories until we left. Had we seen the stories before our experiences, I may have chalked it up to our minds reenacting the stories. But we had no prior knowledge to these specific ones. I did return to the hotel in 2019 when I went with a group to see the Rolling Stones. They didn't know about the hauntings until I told them when they said where we would be staying. This group was really excited and wanted to have paranormal experiences, but nothing happened during that stay. And then they'd write, "That's my story," and they'd love to hear others too.
Yeah, that place sounds really creepy. I like how they didn't look things up so they couldn't blame their dreams. Like, they did know it was haunted.
I like that they mentioned that.
So they did know it was haunted, but their specific dream itself, they didn't have any knowledge of. So that was cool. Mine is, all of mine, I read it. This is from Life is a Love, and it's Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. So I mentioned this one earlier. So, this is a small cemetery in a forest on the outskirts of Chicago, has earned a reputation as the most haunted graveyard in the United States, thanks to more than 100 documented sightings of ghosts, strange lights, and other suggestively supernatural episodes. During the 1950s, after an outbreak of vandalism at the remote site, several people claimed to have seen an entire phantom farmhouse shimmering above the graveyard, which receded as they approached it. Others say they have seen the ghost of a farmer and his plow horse who died when they were dragged to their death in a nearby pond. Some people driving on the roads near the cemetery at night have reported encounters with a phantom 1940s gangster-style car that appears on the road in front of them before turning off the road and disappearing. Others claim to have crashed into the phantom car at a sharp curve in the road, but after the shock had passed, there was no damage and no other car. In 1991, the Chicago Sun-Times newspaper ran a celebrated photograph taken by a visitor to the graveyard, showing what appeared to be the semi-transparent form of a woman in an old-fashioned dress sitting on a gravestone. The photographer, part of a paranormal research team, claimed that the woman was not visible when the photograph was taken. The figure in the photograph has become known as the Madonna of Bachelor's Grove and may be linked to the legend of the White Lady, which was kind of mentioned in my story that I read earlier. The White Lady, the ghost of a woman buried next to her young child, and who is said to walk through the graveyard on nights of the full moon with the infant wrapped in her arms. So I thought that was just interesting, like a little look into that cemetery.
Any pictures? Like, did anybody post pictures anywhere?
I bet you we can find the famous one, and I'll make sure to post that when this one comes out. We can use that as our main photo. But yeah, so that's Bachelor's Grove Cemetery.
All right, I have one more. It's also at the Congress Plaza Hotel, and they write, "The Congress Plaza Hotel was the hotel that my mom had told me my family was going to stay in while we were in Chicago. I didn't think much of it. I've been to so many hotels in my life, and nothing weird has ever happened to me, so I was completely fine. As soon as we arrived in Chicago, we got into a taxi and told them we were going to the Congress Plaza. The guy seemed kind of turned off when we said it. The whole ride there, he didn't say much, except when we got out, he kind of forced his smile and said, 'Have fun.' As soon as we got in it, it reminded me of a castle. It had fancy gold chandeliers and lamps and marble flooring. But it immediately reminded me of the hotel in The Shining, which scared me a lot. Side note, a week before this, I had watched The Shining, but I just assumed all old hotels looked like that. There was history everywhere. They said that Al Capone, many presidents, and many famous people stayed in the Congress Plaza. It was, they write, hundreds of years old. I don't know how old it actually is. The hallways were very dark. Even though there was a light between every door, it just looked dark and creepy. Later that night, me and my mom were sitting in my room when I heard the sink turn on. I asked her if she heard it too, but she reassured me it was just the toilet making noises because they were most likely old. I don't know, does our toilet ever make noise? Unless it's like been flushed.
No, only really after like you switch the water filter so the water gets turned off and then back on, but that's the only time.
Yeah, that's the only time I ever hear it either. Okay, back to the story. It was late that night when I went looking for a soda machine. I couldn't find any of them, so I asked the front desk. She was young and very awkward and told me there were soda machines in the game room. The game room had to be entered by first walking through a closet, which also scared me.
That's weird.
None of the sodas worked, so I asked the lady again. She told me there was no other soda machines located in the hotel, so I ended up just going back to sleep. Seems like an interesting thing to drink when you're in the middle of the night.
Yeah, it does.
Especially, I don't know.
And a hotel only having one soda machine?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, okay, granted, okay, I can see our hotel in our town. It's a small hotel, but the Congress Hotel is like decent size.
The next day, we read through the services they offered, and it read ice machines are located on almost every floor of the South Tower. So that night, I went looking around. I went to the 12th floor and looked around and didn't see anything but the doors to the stairs. So I walked in there. In there was a long hallway behind the stairs, which I walked down to find a few more rooms, and finally I found the ice machine and a soda machine. While I was fixing the ice, it was very loud, so I heard almost nothing when I felt a cold breeze, so I turned and looked to see a lady just walking. I jumped because I wasn't expecting it, but laughed, assuming she would find it funny. But she didn't. She didn't even look at me. She just walked and turned the corner. Right after I began to walk back, when I looked down the corner, I didn't see her. It was a dead end, and I never even heard a door open or close. It kind of weirded me out, but I thought nothing of it. Once I called the elevator. I planned on going back to my room, they say on the 13th floor, but it didn't move. It just stood there for about 2 minutes. I was terrified, but it finally began to move, very fast, faster than an elevator I've ever seen. It took me into the 3rd floor. I was too scared to use that elevator again, so I ended up just running up 10 floors of stairs.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't think the hotel was all that bad, so I didn't leave with any ill feeling or anything. But when I got home, my mom said to me, "Yeah, I don't want to say anything, but the hotel was haunted." Completely out of nowhere. I began to put 2 and 2 together and really began to scare me. I thought I saw a ghost. She told me it was one of the most haunted hotels in Chicago, so I googled Congress Plaza, and all the searches said haunted. I read some stories, and apparently in the North Tower, a mother threw her children off the balcony and then hung herself, and it said that her ghost roams the 12th floor in the South Tower. Also, it said that a maid had died in the hotel, and she haunts the 3rd floor. Guests often complain that elevator stops on the 3rd floor for no reason, just like it had to me. The same thing happened to my brother as well. The whole thing really scared me. I could only imagine how scary, I know we're family friendly, but scary shit would have been if I actually knew it was haunted when I was staying there. So I wonder who that lady was that they saw.
Yeah, I've heard when you said 12th story because I've read because I had us mainly look up Congress Plaza hotel stories, just because that's like one of the most popular things for Chicago haunts. And I did read a lot. When you said 12th story and you said he saw a girl, I kind of figured that's who it was because I read a lot about that. And someone I followed went there recently, and she said she went on that floor and like she could just feel all of these emotions while she was on that floor because of the incident that happened.
Someone you followed like on social media, or you're just following someone?
Just following her.
You followed them to Chicago?
I just followed them through Chicago. I'm like, I see you. All right, so that leads me to my last story is Reddit, posted by Runs Like a Girl. I don't know if it was posted by a girl, but it's Runs Like a Girl. And it was a night in the Congress Plaza Hotel.
I wonder what it's about.
I had an incident this weekend, and I really feel like I need to share and talk about it. Maybe you guys can help me make sense of it. I booked a night in the Congress Plaza Hotel in Chicago. I chose this particular hotel because it was close to a race I would be running in the morning. The night before I went up, I finally got around to reading the reviews, and I was very surprised to learn that it had the reputation of being one of the most haunted hotels in America. My reaction was pretty much, wow, that's weird, whatever, people have good imaginations. I assumed that most of the hauntings were due to being an old building, and old buildings make noise. I'm really good at trying to blame anything on just, it was...
I blame the cats.
Yeah, if you have an animal, but at a hotel, like, oh, it's the floor above us. I headed to Chicago on Friday night. I went to a concert that evening and checked into the hotel at about midnight. It looked like the hotel from The Shining, very fancy, but an old-fashioned fancy, like it hadn't been renovated in decades. I felt like a time capsule into days gone by. So it's funny how people talk about The Shining. In one of the reviews I read, someone thinks, I did not confirm this, that Stephen King's, they said it was a short film, 1408, which I've seen a movie called that, so I'm assuming that's what it is. They think that this was the place of his inspiration for that movie. Obviously, The Shining was not from this hotel. That was in the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. All right, anywho, sorry. I entered my room and it says it's weird. I entered my room and was hit a wall of hot, stuffy air. I got undressed and turned the TV on and ate my takeout food. I definitely got the I'm being watched vibe. I chalked it up to my scaring myself with the haunted stories. I was definitely creeped out and feeling very unsettled, but I told myself I was imagining things. I turned off the TV, plugged in a portable fan in the bathroom, that was the only free outlet I could find for background noise, and laid down to go to sleep. Just as I started to drift to sleep, I heard a crash from the bathroom. I went in to see what it was. My fan, which I had plugged in and sat in the middle of a countertop, was unplugged and in the shower. There is no way it could have fallen. It was in the middle of the countertop. I've had it for years, and it's never vibrated itself to the edge of a surface. There's no way it could have fallen, and even if it did, it certainly wouldn't have landed 7 feet away in the shower. Oh my god, I got goosebumps. That would scare the hell out of me. It was at this point that I truly, truly felt the presence of a dark entity. I'm not one to think like this at all. I'm afraid to talk about this night to my friends because they'll think I went nuts. It felt like there was evil in the room. I don't know what she's saying. I tried to vein to go back to sleep. It didn't work. At one point, I saw the cord to the lamp swaying back and forth on its own. The closet door kept opening even when I shut it firmly, and worst of all, there were voices. So many voices. I heard voices on either side of the room, muffled and low enough that I couldn't hear the words, but definitely voices. It could have been other guests, but I guess I don't usually hear a lot of people up chatting at 2:30 a.m. The final thing was in my mind. I started thinking about the story I had read about a haunting at the hotel, that a woman threw her 3 sons and herself from a 12th floor window. Oh, this was one of the why I knew about it more. My mind somehow started telling me, you should go look out the window and see what her view was. I was on the 11th floor. I don't think this way. I'm not some sort of emo freak. I'm a very boring suburban housewife. I also have 3 sons. There was no way in my right mind I would want to look at the scene of that sort of crime. The scene where a mother murdered her 3 boys. It was very disturbing to me that my mind was going there, thinking about that. With this, I left. I packed up my things and left at 3 a.m. I told the front desk person, I'm sorry, I'm very embarrassed, but things are being moved around in my room on their own and other stuff, and I'm sorry, I can't deal with this. I need to leave. You would think most hotel staff would try and soothe your fears a little, but she kind of looked at me with a look of resignation, like she knew what was up. I left. I drove 3 hours to get home and didn't get to run my race. I've never in my life been so terrified. I will never walk in that place again. I'm generally a very logical, scarily normal person, but in this situation, I truly felt some sort of demonic or evil presence. And then she just said, I'd love to hear what you think of this, or to maybe give me some reassurance or explanation. This night is haunting me. I can't stop thinking about it. I don't think anyone can give her any reassurance because there's a lot of stories just like hers.
Yeah, I would, 1, switch rooms, and 2, just absolutely, I don't know if, I would.
I want to stay here.
Hotels probably. But I don't, if I'm by myself, that's one thing.
No, I want us to stay here. I'd almost want another couple sharing a room with us, so we'll have to see. Our friends are actually staying at the Congress Hotel. We're not staying there when we go to, we already had our hotel booked before we realized this. I think before we were even suggesting staying in haunted places. But our friends are going to be staying there, so we'll have to find out what floor they're staying on and hear their experience. But I don't know. It sounds really creepy. It reminds me how she said her fan flew. There was some videos we watched. I don't know what TV channel it was.
Was it that Supernatural?
I think it was Travel Channel.
Yeah, Paranormal Caught on Tape or something.
But yeah, there was this one guy. I don't care what people think. I mean, if you're listening to this, I would think you have some appreciation to when people post stuff. Like, I do understand being the devil's advocate and being like, oh, there was probably a string attached and someone hiding in the corner.
I'm always looking for the...
Well, yeah, I'm always looking for that too. But this guy was staying at a hotel and he got on camera stuff being flown and it was terrifying. And he kept staying for a while. I'm like, why haven't you gotten out of there?
Yeah, someone with the light it would glow brighter and...
And the phone would fly off it was like an older style phone. All right. But with that, did you have anything to add?
No.
Nothing fun to brighten people's end of their days?
No, I'm just looking forward to it not snowing.
Yeah.
It looks really pretty out, but I'm done shoveling.
Winter is my favorite season, but I am officially over it and ready for the water to open up. But right now we're looking at a blizzard outside, so... Happy snow days. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. If you have any creepy stories to share with us, please email them to creepytravelspodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to share your stories. And we hope you guys all have a great week.